Hello everyone, welcome back to another Strigoi video. Today we're doing a SYLVANETH TACTICS review of the Tree-Revenants, one of my favorite battle lines in a new battle tome. First of all, we'll discuss their Warscroll, then we'll look at their role in the army, there are several. Then we'll move on to basic tactics. In this section we'll talk about glades and seasons and stuff. And then we'll go over 2 tips and tricks that you can use to make more fun out of them in a battle. So when we're looking at their basic stat line, you can see that they really received an upgrade from their previous iteration. So they've gone to 2 wounds, which is a huge update for only a 30 points increase on their total points value for 5. They also neatened up the weapon profiles a little bit. It's a bit more reliable. And now the Protector Glaive is just a straight up a boost from the Enchanted Blade, which was not the case previously. So now there's really no reason not to take the glaive in your champion. Speaking of which, let's look at their Warscroll as a whole. So they actually only have 1 ability on their Warscroll, so I would be remiss not to include the other abilities that they get from their command structure. So let's start off with the champion, who's called the Scion. It's obviously only one model can be a Scion. You add 1 to the attacks for this model and it can be equipped with a Protector Glaive. As I mentioned before, there's really no reason not to do this. The Protector Glaive is exactly the same as the Enchanted Blade, with the only difference being it inflicts 1 more damage. Nothing special here, but it does get way more interesting from the 2 other guys. So the Standard Bearer can take a Glade banner, 1 in 5 models can carry it. And units with a Glade banner can pile in 6 inches instead of 3. Now do mind, this means that their pile-in move is increased to 6 inches, and not that you can pile in when you're within 6. So you still have to be within 3, but then when you do pile in, it can be 6 inches. This is quite handy to get around certain units, maybe to reach a hidden unit behind the screen, or to mitigate your damage that your opponent can return to you if you pile into one of their corners of their big units. Their most interesting guy though is the Wave Piper. So 1 in 5 models can carry wave pipes at the start of the movement phase, so this is important, at the start of the movement phase. A unit with wave pipes can teleport instead of moving normally. Place a unit anywhere on the battlefield 9 inches away from enemy units. What this means is that you usually won't even run these guys at all or move these guys with their normal speed at all. So they have a 5-inch movement speed, but this doesn't really matter as they can just teleport anywhere. So the only time that I'm moving them instead of teleporting them is when I want to get closer than 9 inches to an enemy unit. And that's very rarely the case with Tree-Revenants, for me at least. This is the one ability why you take them and why they are so good. Honestly, if they removed all their stuff from their Warscroll and this was the only thing they had, I would still really like them. Obviously they would have to be a bit cheaper, but the main value from this unit, in pairs of 5 at least, comes from the wave pipes. Now they do have 1 ability, it's called Martial Memories, quite a neat ability. So once per battle round, this unit can receive an all-out attack or defense command without the command being issued and without a command point being spent. So if this does mean that you can still use all-out attack or all-out defense on a different unit as well, and you don't even have to spend a command point on this one specifically. So their 5-up save is actually always a 4-up if you want it to be, or their 4+ to hit is actually always a 3-up to hit if you want it to be. Which is kind of cool, I think. It's not the most interesting ability, but honestly it's just a very clear battle line with a very clear purpose, and I actually really enjoy a obvious mechanic like this, though it doesn't really affect your games as much as certain other abilities, but I really like the ease of play with this. Now let's look at their role in the army. So they can fulfill 3 roles. Usually they do the first 2 for me. I've actually never tried the Chaff Hunter, but I've seen it used in battle reports and from other people that I know, so that they can do as well. So obviously they're always battle line, there is no way you can circumvent this. So they will be battle line and they are a great pick for it. Honestly, their 1 in 10 110 points for 5 models with 10 wounds and teleporting. That is amazing. A lot of armies have to take heroes or pay for other abilities to get a teleport in their army. We just get it on every 110 point unit, so that's fantastic. If points allow and you've not really got a different game plan in mind, I would always take 2 of these guys, so 2 units of 5. Just because they're so good at getting you those battle tactics, which we'll talk about later. They are by far one of my favorite units in the book. Now they also do very well in the objective game, so obviously their teleport is the main reason for this. They are very good at grabbing objectives, especially as Galician veterans. They count as 15 if you're putting a unit of 5 on an objective. And though that doesn't really mean much in a setting where you could face, let's say, 20 zombies who count as 60, you see that less and less. You see people really try hard to avoid taking Galician vets. So having those 15 or count as 15 models in your army is really not a bad idea. I would also say if you're only taking them as 5, you might as well put them in that battalion unless you have a vastly different plan for them, because they are going to die anyway, whether they were Galician veterans that were fought by bounty hunters or not. There's only a very small chance that they would survive any real retaliation from a unit. They are, as I mentioned before, fantastic for battle tactics. We will discuss this in the tips and tricks section, but you can really, if you take at least 2 units and you play them cleverly, there is really no reason why you would not be able to complete at least 2 battle tactics with the same 2 units. So that is fantastic in a setting where battle tactics are a bit more difficult to complete sometimes. They also can be used as chaff hunters. Now, I'm not very keen on the idea itself because I think we have units that do that role a lot better, but still their teleport opens them up to being very good flanking hunters. So imagine your unit has some, let's say 20 sentinels in the back, and you can teleport your tree revs just outside 9 inches from those, and then get some charging bonuses and get them in with a unit of 10, a 6-inch pylon, and with their automatic all-out attack, they can do some damage. So I put in the numbers, and this is the damage result that you get. So let's say versus sentinels who have a 5+ save or a 4+ with all-out defense, you're killing about 7 to 8, maybe 9 of them statistically. Now this is in this case you do have to consider that I put in the numbers for a unit of 10. So obviously when you would charge anything that's ranged, you would still take the Unleash Hell. Obviously you'll probably lose some guys on the way in, but it is still a very good option in the sense that it's only 220 points. So that's not really that big of a point investment in an army where 3 Kurnoth Hunters already cost you more than that. So even when you're running them as 10 and you're putting them in a in your battalion where you from Expert Conquerors, that unit counts as 30 now. So you still have some flexibility with a unit of 10, though I do like them much better as in units of 5. Okay, so as far as basic tactics go, there is really not as much to discuss as there was with the Drycha video, for example. So we're just going to go over glades and seasons and then move on to positioning. So with the glades, a bit of a disclaimer. I did not include Ironbark here. As I mentioned in the previous Sylvaneth guide, I do not rate Ironbark at all in any situation or any in any type of army right now. So I don't really like to include it because it would mess up my format a little bit. I would have to make room for a 7th glade, but that's not the main reason. It's just I would always rate it badly, and there's not really a reason for it to be included when that's the case. So the tree res are a bit in a weird spot because they don't really benefit directly from being in any glade. That means that they don't get improved by being in a glade, but their presence in a glade improves the army as a whole. Yeah, so that's how I kind of planned the scores for this one. So they score quite low, as you can see, but that's because my scores for these kind of videos are 50% due to the fact that a glade benefits from the unit, and vice versa, a unit benefits from being in the glade. So them not benefiting specifically from being in any glade does lower the scores as a whole. So if you want to compare them to other units that fulfill the same role, just up the grades by 1 letter basically. So Oakenbrow, you know, the Oakenbrow list can take Tree Lords as battle line, so there is still a place for Tree Res because they are way faster than any form of Tree Lord, though the Tree Lords can obviously also teleport, but then only through the trees. I would still kind of like him in Oakenbrow, but you don't really need them at all. That's why they only get a B for me. The Battleline Tree Lords are fantastic. And if you're doing an Oakenbrow list, you probably want to go down that route anyway. Gnarl Root is a good glades as a whole, and so the Tree Res really fit in well as a great battle line option. There's really no other battle line that fits the Gnarl Root glade better than Tree Res, I would say. So they get a B+. If the Tree Res would benefit themselves from Gnarl Root, this would be my A+ choice. So this would be my favorite pick for them. In Heartwood, they're also very useful. It is a bit similar to Oakenbrow in the sense that Heartwood obviously gets the Kurnoth Hunters as battle line. Now again, the Kurnoths are pretty slow, so having a fast element that can teleport is still useful. So they get the same grade as Oakenbrow, a B. Winterleaf, you really want tar pit units. They are a good tar pit unit in the sense that they can do it and you can teleport them, so they would be an excellent screen, and then following that a good tar pit, but they remain very fragile. So at best they're on a 4+ save. With Mystic Shield you can obviously put them on a 4+ save ignoring 1 rend, but still that's not great odds to tar pit anything, because if you want to tar pit a unit, it's usually a unit that's a threat, right? And any decent threat would remove your Tree Res without a hassle. So they get a C+ for me, because the teleporting is still good for tar pitting choices, but the unit as in itself isn't really a great pick. In Dreadwood, I don't really see a point to them. You've got the Spites that are a great alternative to them, especially with the double teleport from Dreadwood once per game. The need for more speed, Jesus, I can't believe I just said that sentence. The need for speed isn't as great as in other glades. For Harvest Boon, it's much of the same thing actually. They don't really serve a purpose at all there, because you've got those Bug Riders as your battle line, so you've really got your fast choices covered. There's really no need for more speedy elements in that list, so it doesn't synergize well with Harvest Boon. They don't really fulfill a role that you need to needs to be fulfilled. Though obviously there's no harm in taking them in Harvest Boon. Let me just go ahead and say that. There is no harm in taking them in any glade for that matter. They are such a good battle line unit that I'm always happy to take them. Moving on to the Season 10. The Burjing actually scores pretty well for me in this one. Maybe that's a bit due to my playstyle with them, so usually for me they end up being screens or objective holders, and in that case they get charged more than that they themselves charge a unit. So in that sense the Burjing really can help them survive and helps them holding objectives for a longer period of time. The Reaping, it allows for some great flexibility with their teleport and big pylons, so it increases your range on your teleport back. So being able to teleport back within 9 inches of a wood or overgrown terrain piece is pretty handy if you consider that your unit can pile in 6 inches. And thus it's very easy to forget about one tick to teleport back and then moving a single model without that 6 outside of that 6-inch zone, and then you're not allowed to teleport back. So with that 9 inch you've got some flexibility there. The dwindling is probably my favorite season personally, but it doesn't really work well with the tree revs. Again, that doesn't mean you won't take tree revs in a list where you've took the dwindling. It's just that the dwindling specifically doesn't have any synergy with this unit. Everdusk, it's really bad, sorry. It only does 1 more damage on average on a unit of 10. So on a unit of 5 it only does a half a point more damage. So really there's no, I don't really see a purpose to it. Let's look at some basic tactics then. So we're going to talk setup and objective zoning. These are common knowledge, I would say. I think a lot of you experienced players out there don't really see any benefit to this slide for themselves, but I thought it would be very interesting still for everyone that's just picking up Sylvaneth. So when you're setting up this unit, especially in 2nd edition, there was really this tradition, I would almost say, where you were just taking 3 units of 5 and put them in a corner as far away from the enemy as possible, then run all 3 of them for an easy battle tactic, and then start teleporting them out the next turn. So even though you can't do that battle tactic anymore, it's still very much a good way to set them up. So I usually, unless I want them as screens by the way, I usually deploy them outside of all threat ranges. So as far back as I can, maybe even behind an Awakened Wildwood, just to create as much distance to them as possible, because I really want my tree revs to be alive when I want to grab those battle tactics. So I hold them in a corner, and then I use my wave pipes to teleport out when the time is right. This works well for me. You could obviously also use them as screens if you notice that your opponent has a very aggressive list, and you're going to go second, for example, or you're planning to go second. They can still be a decent screen. And if you're not going second, you can just teleport them back anyway. So there's also nothing lost there if you want them as screens. Now for objective zoning, this is again common knowledge, but I felt it important to just reiterate this. So try to get your units still within 6 inches of the objective, but the point here is that you want the back of their bases within 6 inches. So they all still count as being on the objective, but you want the front of their bases to be outside of 6 inches. What does that mean? Well, if your enemy charges in and they connect with your units and they don't do their pilings very well, they won't get any models on your objectives, because the front of your bases aren't on the objective. So statistically, they can't be on the objective either unless they do a good piling, which they will be able to do. Don't get me wrong, especially if you've only got a unit of 5. But then again, they only get a 3-inch pile-in, and at best they're getting maybe 2-3 models on it, and then you still win out in the end, unless you die, of course. So there is that. Now moving on to the tips and tricks section. This is the last 2 slides for this video. So the first tips and tricks part is the easy tactics section. So as I mentioned before, the tree revs are really good at getting battle tactics. I especially like them for that specifically. If you teleport 2 units of tree revs into your enemy zone, you complete barge through enemy lines without a hassle, and there is nothing your opponent can do to stop you, unless they've actually put time and effort into zoning out the entire board space. But then again, that's where your unit of 5 comes in handy, because they really have a very small footprint on the board. So I've never really fought an opponent where there's only enough place to place 3 or 4 models. There might be in that one mission where you only have a very small space to deploy, that might be a little bit hard, but in all other cases, there's really no reason why you would not be able to complete bars through enemy lines. And then if you did your teleports well, and your opponent has no range or no way to get to you, or you hug your terrain especially well, you can still do desecrate their lands in the next turn and just claim some terrain piece. So they are fantastic at getting battle tactics. And I really recommend you keeping that in mind when you're planning your turns. They're also good as a charge train. Now the charge train, it doesn't really specifically work only for them. This is a common battle tactic in Sylvaneth right now. So with the Spite Swarm Hive, you can add 3 inches to any charge move for a unit. And then with the Allied Battle Mage of Gur, you can add another 2 inches to the charge move as well. So you're actually charging 2d6 plus 5 after a teleport. So that means you only need to get a 4-inch charge after you teleport, which makes them better as chaff hunters. As we mentioned before, this basically almost guarantees that you'll get your charge, because a 4-inch charge move with the possible reroll from a command point, I mean, you have to be really unlucky to fail both of those. So you still got that. It's a good tactic. Honestly, I would probably not use this tip on the tree revs. If you have all the before mentioned pieces, the Spite Swarm Hive and the Gur Battle Mage, you probably want to use this on different units, maybe even after teleporting them through the woods, because then you can complete your battle tactic from the battle tome itself. But it's still cool on tree revs, and it's very cool if you're using them as chaff hunters. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. Now guys, you obviously noticed that it was unscripted again this time. I made a bit more errors this time because I've really had a very, very tough week. Teaching has picked up again, so it's always a bit of a rush at the start of the week or at the start of a new school year. I still hope you really enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you've got any comments, if you think I forgot something, or maybe if I got something wrong. That's usually the case some plays, because no one's perfect. But also do please let me know what you enjoyed. If you thought it was still very enjoyable to watch or listen to, even with the small errors that I made and a lot of ums that I dropped in this video. And if you're interested in joining the conversation a bit more, please do consider joining our Discord. Especially for the Sylvaneth part of our Discord, we can really use some more insight from you guys. So please show up there and join our little community. Well, that's it for now. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.